So our next speaker is the lovely Anna. And I'm not going to take your thunder or tell any of your stories because I know you've got some good ones. But Anna, do you know you've been nominated for Business of the Year award?
So I heard.
For Tech Pixies.
I know.
I know, it's so exciting. And she's going to talk to you about some of the brave things she's done in the last year and some of the brave stories that she hears from women all the time.
I'm going to start by saying what this is not. It is not anywhere near as good as the other speakers. Oh, and also, obviously, I have a Smiggle pen because my 5-year-old must have my Mont Blanc pen. So I started writing down and I said background, truly unremarkable. So yeah, that's a start. Truly unremarkable background. I'm Swedish, grew up in Sweden in a truly unremarkable town. Pretty unremarkable childhood. But in a way, this is good. In a way, it's good. There's no trauma, really, even though I've read so many, I love biographies. And if you read pretty much anyone who's succeeded in life, there's been trauma. So I do my very best as a parent to traumatize my children on a daily basis. I don't really feel I'm succeeding, but that's another story. So I started this speech, and I've started it many, many times, because this is the only reason I said yes to this is, actually 2 reasons. I can't say no, I say yes all the time. And secondly, I felt this wasn't so much about me, but about the amazing stories I get to hear from some pretty amazing women that I get to talk to for my podcast. So, but before we get to the podcast, because that was, again, it wasn't even brave, I just said yes. It's all about just saying yes, really. But through this unremarkable childhood that I had, the one thing that, because I thought, how has it come that people sort of look, and not to, big my own head up, but people very often come and say, gosh, well, it's so easy for you. I mean, you could do this, but I could never do that. And I thought, seriously, truly unremarkable going on right here. But what my parents taught me through absolutely no action whatsoever, unremarkable really, is that it's so truly okay to be unremarkable. And that meant I was totally okay with being quite shit at trying lots of things. And that was absolutely okay because, and this is sort of a meme that's going around at the moment, this whole fail. It's not fail, it's first attempt in learning. And I was like, yes! Why didn't I think of that? So I've tried my hand at very, very, very many things. Jobs, sports, not boyfriends though. No, not through any choice of mine. And very often people will say, oh gosh, it's so brave. Have you gone from so many different careers? Or I'm just quite shit at the ones I've tried. But again, that's okay. I now have many, many, many bows to my string. And what I really want to talk about through this Be Brave and Sparkle is when you do a small act of bravery, and bravery sounds like something that's so like massive, but putting your brave pants on. So that's kind of where I'm coming from. You put your brave pants on, me and mine are firmly on at the moment. You realise you try something, and then all of a sudden, well, the worst thing that happened was that, I laughed and some other people laughed at me, but that was like literally the worst thing that happened. And I now actually feel kind of okay in saying yes to something else and trying something else. And all of a sudden, all like small acts of kindness bring about other acts of kindness. These small acts of bravery bring on other acts of bravery. And all of a sudden, you're doing stuff that you never thought you'd do. From that one little thing of bravery that you didn't even like, it's not really brave, I'm just like trying something out. But you tried that thing out, and all of a sudden, we have a whole room full of tech pixies, and we have women who started this course. I've been looking for years. And, you may not think of it as bravery, because I do think bravery sounds like you're, rescuing a puppy from some, flood or, carrying yes. But it is putting your brave pants on. It is putting your brave pants on to finally say yes, clicking that button, paying the money, and actually going, do you know what, world? I'm doing this. I'm doing this course and I'm doing it for me. And that's what my sort of brave pants stories are about. It is about doing something for you. And that leads to the sparkle. And it's the sparkle that leads to what I think is confidence. And the confidence, when you have confidence, that's when you sparkle. It's that sort of, just walk it. Some people just walk into a room and they take up the whole room. And I'm like, yeah, that's just so confident. They're so confident. And actually, sometimes they're not. But they've done something, that act of bravery, and they just get a bit of sparkle. So, many saying yes to different things also inspires other people to be brave. So I actually spoke to my husband last night, who is in India. Handy, when your car gets broken into and all your things are stolen. Another story. And he said, do you know what, Anna? Do you know that you made me brave? I really put my brave pants on, and the only reason why I felt that we could move from London to Switzerland is because you'd moved to London. And if you can do it, I reckon anyone can do it. Thank you very much. It was like, okay, yeah. And that's it, isn't it? Like, you do, again, these little acts of bravery, and you hear about it, and all of a sudden you're like, I reckon I could do that. I don't think it's that hard if she could do it. And that is, again, what this community is all about, I think. So we said yes to moving to Switzerland, moving to Singapore, having children, moving back to Switzerland, then back to London. I went from being a teacher, realised I didn't like children, emigrated because children, and then did a business degree, didn't really like business, and then had sort of a midlife crisis, very early midlife crisis, and decided to become a personal trainer. And that was fun. That was a lot of fun. But I did also meet a lot of women who I then wish, well, in hindsight, I kind of wish I'd just told them to, bloody hell, get out of your job, do something that you actually love. You have one life as far as we know. But that wasn't really for me to say. But then we moved to Switzerland and I had babies, and as many women in Switzerland, you gave up your job and you cook for your husband. And I thought, well, this perhaps is a chance. It's a chance to really think about, what do I really like doing? Because this whole child thing is really, really hard. I thought parenting it's too hard, actually. I've thought many a time to hand in my resignation, but apparently, apparently I need to work my notice, my husband told me. So I realised that what I really, really loved was writing and listening to other people's stories. And I listened to other people's stories and I started to write them down with their permission. And this eventually led to me writing for a fashion blog and interviewing sort of Swiss people who are in the fashion sphere. And even though that was super interesting, I didn't love going to fashion events because what they did, this is very sneaky, they put the bikinis next to the cupcakes. I'm like, well, I'm going to choose the cupcakes. And that wasn't the done thing. So we moved back to London, and fast forward again, I met up with an old friend who said, do you know what? We've just got to do this podcast. Yes, because I say yes. Did we have a single clue how to do a podcast? No, genuinely none. Like, do you just stick it in the computer? Like, how does... We have a microphone, we have a laptop, and that's it. So we're like, do YouTube it? Like how to do a podcast? I'm just like, I have no idea. But then through some sort of thing in the world, a podcast course came up on Facebook. And we're like, well, I guess that's what we do then. So we did this podcast course, and all of a sudden, obviously, week one, we're like, right, we've planned the launch party, and we've got a name, and yeah, so we're pretty much ready. Oh, right. Then there was the editing. Then there was the what's it actually going to be about. And we kind of knew that we wanted to have women on there who told their stories, who, and we had, I couldn't do that because, and that felt too long. And then I said, just say yes. And then we realized that maybe that could mean something else. So we scrapped that. And eventually we just went with Brave Pants. And so our podcast is now called Brave Pants with Vogue and the Viking. So Vogue, if you remember Gladiators from back in the day, it's Vogue from Gladiators. So she had sort of her own Brave Pants stories to tell, and then I just sort of tagged along, really. And that's fine. I've always been a very good sort of number two. But what this meant was that we could easily approach women who we thought were like amazing and cool, because it wasn't us doing it. We were hiding behind the Brave Pants and, do you want to be on a podcast? We don't know anything about podcasting, but we love to hear your stories. So what I, again, through this long-winded, I have nothing to talk about, is tell you about some of the women I've met who, and again, we have more and more and more women actually now coming forward and asking, what do you have to have done to be on your podcast? And I was like, well, you're a woman. You probably have a story, bring it on. So, for example, we have a Rebecca, who is the editor of Goldie magazine. If you've not heard of Goldie magazine, go and find it, because it's really, really cool. It's a proper glossy magazine. It was initially for the over 40s. And she set it up without any background in being a magazine editor whatsoever, but she was pissed off with the fact that whenever she sat down at the hairdressers, there was nothing there really for her to read. She didn't want to read Tatler, and she didn't want to read Grazia magazine or Hello. So eventually her friends just said to her, do you know what, we're a little bit bored of you just nagging. Set one up then if it's that easy. Well, I will. So at the age of 53, she set up her own magazine. I mean, that is so cool. That is bravery. And it is slightly more than someone just laughing at you. I mean, that was proper money involved. That was, holy crap, what if this fails? Because that is also first attempt in learning, and here's all my money. But she's done it. It is thriving. It is always changing, forever changing, which is a good thing. And she's just really found her own voice. And this is also a woman, which is absolutely key, who, when she was little, she hid under the stairs in a cupboard because she was so, she had so much anxiety that she genuinely could not speak to people out in the open. So she genuinely hid in the cupboard under the stairs. And now she's got this platform, and you would never know that she's not a massive extrovert. And that is Brave Pants firmly on. Then we have Jacinth, who was, again, incredible. At the age of 13, she decided, I'm going to be a tax barrister and I'm going to go to Cambridge. Right, so that's what she did. She went to Cambridge and she became a tax barrister. And sometimes, you shouldn't meet your idols, similar. You shouldn't do your dream job. She realised it's just as what you thought a tax barrister was going to be, not hugely fun. And she's very creative. So she then decided to go home and just tell her parents, tax barrister, no. Fashion, yes. And thankfully, they were super supportive, but many of her friends decided, well, what's this? A tax barrister is someone that we can sort of hang our sort of status on, whereas, it's working startup fashion designer. No one makes it, do they? So she was like, well, that's fine. I need to do this. I have my brave pants on and I need to do this. So now she's thriving in her bias cut. Biascut.com even. Then we have Vicky Anstey. Oh my God. The woman is rowing the Pacific. The Pacific Ocean. Not just like the Pacific Lake. She's rowing the Pacific Ocean. She was, again, fairly unremarkable. Not as unremarkable as me, but she was an advertising exec. And one day she said she looked herself in the screen of the computer and just went, no, this cannot go on. So, not quite one day to another, but she set up her own bar. The first bar workshop, sort of ballet, I would, but I can't, bar workshop. And she's now been on SAS, Who Dares Wins, because she sat there in her armchair and thought, I reckon I could do that. So she did. And I said, that is mad. Like, that's not even putting your brave pants on. Like, that is a whole freaking armor of bravery. But she said it has absolutely taught her. And again, this is what, it's one thing after the other, because she said after SAS Who Dares Wins, she thought, well, what's going to be my next thing? And she said, well, I could do the Marathon des Sables, which is this marathon in the desert. But, anyone could do that. Don't know. So that's when she decided to row the Pacific, because not everyone can do that. True. But she said it's just, I kind of feel like after the SAS Who Dares Wins, which was so traumatic in a way, she kind of just felt, well, there's very little I can't do now. And that again, I think that's like bravery on a different level. I'm kind of talking, be brave for yourself and maybe like go have a coffee by yourself and don't feel guilty about it every Monday at 10 o'clock. But if you want to go to SAS Who Dares Wins levels, absolutely go for your life. Then after that, there is nothing you can't do. And then we also have, we have Baz Moffat. We love Baz Moffat. Anyone knows Baz Moffat? In a room full of women, very often someone does, because she has gone from an Olympic GB rower to now genuinely believing she's put on this earth to help women with their pelvic floors. She's genuinely so passionate. You had no idea you could be so passionate about pelvic floor until you meet Baz Moffat. And this is what our podcast is all about. Brave pants, firmly on. And the reason why I said yes to this particularly, apart from the fact that I can't say no, be brave and sparkle. And I think it's the sparkle thing that I kind of wish that I'd come up with. Because it's that, isn't it? It's what happens when you've done that brave thing. It is not so much about the fear of failure, actually. I believe it's more, what happens if you succeed? What are you going to do then? See? I genuinely believe that so many of us don't start things because we're afraid of failing, but we are bloody petrified of what would happen if we actually succeed in doing what we set out to do. And when I thought of that, I was like, yes, that is what it is. We're not afraid of failure. I fail all the bloody time. But the success is truly quite frightening and remarkable. And then when you start to think about it and you do these, like I don't have any handouts, but thankfully someone else did. Thank you. You think of their big, hairy, audacious goal. Yes, it's a black. And you truly, truly start to think about it. Is that truly your goal? Because if it is, you can make that happen. You can make that happen. There are so few people who actually make such an audacious goal that you can't make it happen. And actually, another woman who I truly believe in, and I'm going to wrap up very soon, is a Swedish entrepreneur. Her goal is to be the biggest businesswoman on the planet. That's her goal. And she's actually said that rather than set yourself small goals, everyone sets small goals. Like the bit here, let me put down my Smiggle pen. The bit here is so crowded. The bit up here, you've only got like 3 people. You're only going to beat 3, maybe even 2. But down here, you've got to beat bloody millions. So why don't you go for the big, hairy, audacious goal? And that, my friends, will bring sparkle, it will bring inspiration, and it's about stories. Everyone needs to tell their stories. And even if you think it's not big, even if you don't think it's like, oh, but it's just, something. I just signed up to do the course. I just did this. I only just managed to keep my baby alive today. That was pretty major when I had my first. I'm like, I can't actually do this. And that is why this sort of community is so amazing and why I got involved in, well, I think we all sort of got involved because of joy, because you're like amazing. And why Tech Pixies is so amazing. I've always said for the longest time, I'm like, do you know what, you could sell anything. It's the fact that we've got this community that, because when I invested my money, but I also decided to do the course. So I thought, I can't really go around and go, Tech Pixies is amazing, if I have no idea what you actually do. And the course I was on, cohort 14 is what I meant. They were amazing, and I remember them all. But it was that community. And so many women who'd been out of work for years and years and years, they came on that course and literally they were different people from week 1 to sort of week 8. Different women. They were using different language. They were talking about themselves in a completely different way. And that was being brave, and they were sparkling at the end of it.
Still are.
Still are, indeed. They are so thriving, and it's so amazing. And with that, thank you. Thank you very much indeed.